We live in Oklahoma City. This is my wife, Carrie, and we've been married since 1992. And I am currently a recruiter for the collision industry. I recruit body technicians and car painters and estimators and that kind of thing to fix wrecked cars. And I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And I got into that business after I left the military. I retired from the Navy in gosh, I can't believe it's 2012 already, about 6 years ago, and kind of bounced around a little bit here and there to figure out what I was going to do, and so that's what we're doing. We have 3 kids. Our oldest son is a lieutenant in the Navy now himself, and he's stationed in Hawaii, and we're getting to go see him. We're pretty excited about that. And we have our middle daughter. She's 22 now, and she's a collision estimator. She decided to kind of follow my footsteps a little bit and do the collision business. And then we have a 15-year-old daughter at home.
Took a break.
Who's still very much a high school student and just trying to get through all that. So we're just glad to be here. It's a good thing.
I met him when I was in high school still, and just followed the military with him most of my life. So as far as a career goes, it's mostly being a mom and a military wife.
My dad was he was a very interesting person. He was a world traveler. He went everywhere. It's funny. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of him is how outgoing he was, and how pretty much whoever met him liked him. There's no question about it. Everyone that talked to him just believed in him immediately. He met so many people all across the globe, and he was a super special guy. He started his career in the medical industry selling heart monitor equipment years ago. Matter of fact, he sold the world's first portable defibrillator. Well, of its kind. The LifePak 6 was a physio control product back then, and he used to sell those. And he was a phenomenal salesman, and it led to different roads for him. And he got into all kinds of pure oxygen machines, and gosh, he sold the stuff that the first digital blood pressure monitors and things like that. Incubators were one of them.
He brought us the first sleep apnea machine. He's like, hey, you guys need one of these.
I did, but no, he was a fascinating guy. He really was. He did a lot of stuff for a lot of other people. Is really what made him special. When I was younger, I struggled with my dad, my parents, quite a bit. I was the middle of 3 boys. We had an older, younger brother, and college wasn't for me. It wasn't going to work out for me at the time, and so that's why he encouraged me to do something else, like join the military, and have a grand adventure in life. And so I did that. And shortly after I joined the Navy, I was stationed in Washington, and that's where I met my wife. We went overseas to the Desert Storm deal, and when that ended, on our way home, we steamed across the Pacific and pulled into Honolulu, in Pearl Harbor. And back then, the Navy would allow male members of your family to come on board the ship and take a ride with you. And so my parents worked it out and flew to Hawaii, and Dad got on board the ship with me, and we took a week-long cruise together on an aircraft carrier back to Bremerton, Washington. And he was like a kid in a candy store, and that to me it was just work. I worked on the flight deck, and it was a dangerous job, but to him it was the most amazing thing I think he ever did, or at least that's what he led on to me. I did tell you he's a good salesman, so he probably could have made me believe anything I wanted to, but I'm pretty sure that he enjoyed himself and on that trip. We had such a good time. They did different things back then. They gave him a book, a qualification book for, we called them Tigers, as guests on board our ship, and it allowed them to go and view the different departments and things on board the ship that were interesting to them. And I didn't really spend a lot of time with my dad on that trip because he was so enthralled with that ship, and he, running around and meeting all the different people in the departments and learning about how an aircraft carrier works and operates at sea. And I think about that time a lot with him. I got to spend that whole week with him, just me and him. You know, it was pretty cool. It was a good time. And then we got back to Seattle, and we pulled into port, and he then met Carrie for the first time. And of course, we didn't.
We were dating.
We didn't know that 27 years would go by, and we're still here together. And it was a special time back then. I can't say that I knew that he had a Sagicor policy, but I knew that he had insurance. I knew that was something that he did. And I know that he had insurance even as long as when we were young, you know, in case something ever happened to him. He was insistent on that kind of thing. That, you know, I can remember him telling me that, you know, someday I won't be here, and when that day comes, you know, you're going to need your brothers more than you ever think now. And of course, it didn't happen while we were younger. Fortunately, it happened while we were older. But I don't know. It's to know him is to know a guy who there's just no question he would have done everything he could to take care of his family. I just know that's why he did it for sure. Even though by the time we had to use it, it wasn't for the reasons that he kept insurance policies in place when we were younger. You know. What kind of goes back to the beginning when I was young. I think he always wanted me to go to school, but he and I both knew at the time it wasn't going to work out, and so he promised me that when I got done with the service, if I wanted to come back home and just do a 4-year, you know, tour of duty or whatever, that he would send me to school then. He made that agreement with me when I was younger. And of course, it didn't happen that way. I wound up getting married, and we moved all over the country and made our own life for ourselves. But through that process, I did go to school, and I paid for my education myself through student loans and things, and finally earned my bachelor's degree. And he was pretty proud of that, you know, and he was happy for me. I never hit him up for the money, never once. I didn't want to do that, you know. By then we were on our own, and when he by the time that he got sick, I still had some student loan debt out there that I had not paid off. And when that money came in, all I could think about was how this is what he wanted for me, you know. And so I paid off my loans.
Because Tim, his brother's the oldest, Tim dealt with that, but for as far as everyone's process and Tim talking to his brothers and us, it was probably the easiest process we went through out of everything. Even setting up the funeral was more difficult than it was to just talk to the insurance company. They were so helpful, and when Tim had questions or we had questions and Tim had to go back. So it was nice knowing that you felt like someone was in your corner to help you, because it's such a trying time, and it's hard not to let your emotions get in the way. And they were so professional in helping us keep those under control when it came time to the process, because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know Dad had a life insurance policy like that, and so it was new to all of us. But they made the process so easy for Tim being the administrator and him calling us and telling us, "Oh, this is all you got to do." It wasn't as hard as people think it would be to get that process done. It's harder to buy a house than it is to
I would definitely recommend Sagicor Life Insurance for the simplicity of it, the ease of it, for sure. But because it's just such an important thing, I think, especially if you have youngsters around, if you're a parent, if you know there's anything important going on that people need to, you know, carry on without you here. It's just, what else is there other than insurance? Most people in this life don't have millions of dollars in the bank, and we certainly don't have millions of dollars in the bank even after this. It wasn't a whole lot of money, but the help that it gave in that time was amazing. and it continues to help. And I couldn't recommend them enough for this kind of thing. It's so difficult to answer your question because you can only really go through this once in your life, and to have people there for you when it happens is
Important.
a big deal.